This is not an official document. It will not be filed anywhere. It will not be processed, classified, or assigned a subdesignation. It will not be destroyed. It is 2003. You are 64 years old. You have 30 years of distance from a sub-basement in Washington that smelled like a filing cabinet closed since the Eisenhower administration, and you have spent most of those 30 years not thinking about what you found there. You are going to tell yourself what you knew on Thursday, April 1973. In the order you knew it, inside the room where you knew it, and what you didn't. You have never told anyone what was in folder 9. You are telling yourself now. MK, the Technical Services Staff, Ultra, the highest classification of intelligence from the Second World War, reserved for the work that determined the outcome of the war itself. Monday, 8:47 a.m. Building 7, Sublevel 2 smells like a filing cabinet closed since the Eisenhower administration. 47 boxes under fluorescent tubes humming just above the threshold of annoyance, which means you will notice it for the first hour, and then your brain will reclassify it as background. The same thing that happened to the people who ran this program when they looked at the human beings inside it. Box 1, Budget Authorizations, $25 million, April 1953, 6 weeks after Stalin died. Distributed across 149 sub-projects, universities, hospitals, prisons, pharmaceutical companies. A brothel in San Francisco, which will make more sense when you reach Box 6. Project Overview, second folder. The language is honest by accident. The authors were so certain of their own righteousness, they forgot to disguise their reasoning. The goal? Develop the capacity to alter human behavior and produce psychological states of compliance in subjects regardless of the subject's conscious cooperation. Regardless of the subject's conscious cooperation. 7 words. The most efficiently evil sentence you have read in 11 years of reading documents designed to contain evil efficiently. Monday, 10:15 a.m. Box 2, Historical Context and Program Genesis. The origin? Korea. American POWs returning from North Korean captivity were confessing to crimes they hadn't committed, denouncing the country they served, endorsing communist doctrine in language their families didn't recognize. Washington called it brainwashing. Washington called it a technology gap. Washington decided to close it. What it actually was, as historians would establish decades later, was the predictable result of starvation, sleep deprivation, isolation, and sustained psychological pressure. The same mechanics that produce confessions in any interrogation, refined over months. But in 1953, the agency read it as evidence the Soviets had solved something America hadn't. Director Alan Dulles approved the program. The man tasked with building it, Sidney Gottlieb, chief of the Technical Services Staff's Chemical Division, known later as the Black Sorcerer. He grew his own food on a farm in Virginia, kept goats, did folk dancing on weekends, described in his own diary as a man motivated by genuine patriotism and the conviction that the existential threat of communism justified the temporary suspension of certain ethical constraints. Temporary. The program ran for 20 years. Monday, 11:52 a.m. Box 3. MK Ultra was not the beginning. It was the third attempt. Project Bluebird, 1950. Goal: develop hypnotic techniques to prevent personnel from revealing classified information under interrogation. And, the clause containing everything that follows, explore whether hypnosis could make a person perform an action they would normally refuse. That question is the seed. Everything else is what grew from it. Bluebird concluded hypnosis alone was insufficient. Project Artichoke, followed in 1951, added morphine addiction as a control mechanism, addict a subject, control access, extract information during withdrawal when resistance collapses. Produced the first deaths attributed to the research process. The documents don't use the word murder. They use experimental mortality, which is the bureaucratic equivalent of a shrug. Both reached the same conclusion: possible but requiring more resources, more subjects, more operational freedom. What they needed was MK Ultra. Box 3 also contains a personnel transfer memo from 1945, 8 years before MK Ultra. 6 German scientists transferred from occupied Europe to United States government research under Operation Paperclip. Names redacted. Fields of expertise redacted. The receiving institution is not redacted. The Office of Scientific Intelligence, direct ancestor of the Technical Services staff. Scientists convicted at Nuremberg for human experimentation transferred to American government employment 8 years before MK Ultra began. You sit with that longer than intended. Monday, 2:33 p.m. Box 6, where the program stops being philosophy and becomes practice. Operation Midnight Climax. Agency leased apartments in San Francisco and New York. Government-employed prostitutes luring men inside. Drinks spiked with LSD, capable of producing hallucinations so complete a subject cannot distinguish them from reality. The men observed through two-way mirrors by scientists with clipboards. A subject convinced the wallpaper was breathing. A man weeping for 90 minutes, unable to explain why. A subject attempting to remove his own teeth because he believed they were transmitting signals. Each report's conclusion: subject response consistent with predicted parameters. Recommend continuation. The agent running the San Francisco operation wrote to Gottlieb in 1971. Of course I was a very minor missionary, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest? This letter is in the archive. It was considered worth preserving. Also in Box 6, 44 universities receiving CIA funding through front organizations, convincing enough that administrations believed they were accepting legitimate research grants. One volunteer, a creative writing student at Stanford named Ken Kesey, participating in LSD trials at the Menlo Park Veterans Hospital, a CIA-funded facility he was never told about. His experience was transformative. He hosted LSD parties with live music, the acid tests, attended by thousands, featuring a band called the Grateful Dead. The CIA funded the counterculture it spent the following decade surveilling. Tuesday, 9:08 a.m., boxes 7 through 20. The Allen Memorial Institute. All of Tuesday. Montreal, McGill University. A Victorian mansion on the northern slope of Mount Royal called Ravenscrag, a name doing the kind of heavy lifting names rarely have to do. Dr. Ewan Cameron, President of the American Psychiatric Association, President of the World Psychiatric Association, a man who sat at Nuremberg and helped convict Nazi physicians for crimes against humanity. He then went home and did the work. The technique, depatterning. Concept, do not renovate the human mind, demolish it. Return the patient to a pre-verbal state and rebuild under the physician's direction. 3 tools deployed in sequence. Page-Russell electroconvulsive therapy. Standard ECT delivers a calibrated current. Page-Russell delivers 40 to 75 times that. Repeatedly. Until grand mal seizures occur. Some patients received over 100 sessions. One patient, a 27-year-old man who came because his doctor said his asthma might have a psychological component. When discharged, he did not recognize his wife, did not know he had children. His family entered poverty. He came in because of asthma, insulin coma therapy, doses sufficient to make the brain consume itself. One patient, 36 consecutive days of induced unconsciousness. The damage is invisible on X-rays. It simply stops working the way it worked before. Psychic driving, a phrase with the innocent enthusiasm of a self-help pamphlet. Method: record a phrase calibrated to the patient's specific psychological vulnerabilities. Their fears, their shames, their softest places. Conceal a speaker under the pillow. Begin playback during induced sleep. Played 300,000 times into a sleeping ear. Your mother hates you. Into the ear of a man who loved his mother. You have never been capable of love. Into a woman with 3 children at home. You are nothing. Into a 16-year-old whose parents brought her in because they were having trouble with her. The 16-year-old appears in 3 documents: intake, a progress note, a discharge summary describing her affect as flat but cooperative. The discharge summary does not mention she was 16. You write 2 words in your notebook. They knew. Wednesday, 11:40 a.m. Box 21 removes a comfort you didn't realize you were holding. Until now, you have been reading this as a series of incidents, the most comfortable way to read atrocities, as the behavior of specific aberrant individuals in specific circumstances. 149 institutions, 44 universities, 12 hospitals, 3 prisons, research facilities in Canada, Britain, and at least 2 other allied nations. The program was not a secret room in Montreal. It was an infrastructure, a nationwide, partially international apparatus operating for 20 years through the legitimate institutions of a democratic society, funded through front organizations convincing enough that the host institutions didn't know who was paying. The geographic spread map in box 22. Dots on a page indicating research sites. The most disturbing document in 3 days of disturbing documents. Not because of what it depicts, but because of the density. There was no part of this country outside it. Wednesday, 3:17 p.m. Frank Olson's file, 11 pages. Biological weapons researcher at Fort Detrick. November 1953. Gottlieb added LSD to a bottle of Cointreau at a CIA retreat and served it without telling anyone. Standard practice. The program regularly dosed non-consenting subjects. That some were CIA employees was apparently a distinction without operational significance. Olson had a severe reaction. In the days following, he became erratic, paranoid, disturbed. Told colleagues he wanted to leave the agency. Told his family he had made a terrible mistake. November 28, 1953, 9 days later, Olson fell from the window of the Hotel Statler in New York, 10th floor, found on the sidewalk at 2:30 in the morning. Official ruling, suicide. Box 31 contains 2 versions. Version 1, Olson was alone. He became agitated, he fell. Version 2, prepared 18 months later. A CIA handler named Robert Lashbrook was in the room, asleep when Olson went through the window, and called Gottlieb before calling emergency services. 2 versions, a gap where the third should be. In 1973, you do not know what fills that gap. You only feel its shape, the way you feel a missing tooth with your tongue. Something is absent from this file. Something the file was designed not to contain. You will not know what it is for another 21 years. In 1994, Olson's family will have his body exhumed. A forensic examination will find blunt force trauma to the skull inconsistent with a fall. We'll find he was struck before going through the window. Version 3 belongs to the future. In 1973, sitting in this sub-basement, all you have is the gap. His family received $750,000, the price the agency calculated for a man's life, and the permanent silence of his survivors. Thursday, 9:22 a.m. Box 40. The termination file. The program officially ended in 1973. MK Ultra ran from 1953 to 1973. 20 years. Then it stopped. Box 40 tells a more complicated story. The termination was not a moral decision. It was a practical one. The same paranoia producing Watergate had reached Langley. Helms understood the investigative appetite consuming the White House was moving outward. MK Ultra's activities were, in the termination memo's language, not compatible with public disclosure. Destruction ordered January 31st, 1973. Most files to be destroyed. You know this because you are the destruction. The termination file also contains a single page from an internal review in late 1972. The conclusion, written with the precision of someone whose words will need to be deniable, certain behavioral modification techniques demonstrated sufficient operational utility to warrant continuation under modified institutional frameworks. Techniques not named, frameworks not described, signed by a name you recognize from Tuesday's personnel files. Beneath the program being terminated, something smaller, quieter, differently named has been given permission to continue. Thursday, 2:41 p.m., Box 42. Thinner than the others, 11 folders. Folder 9. Subject, female. Age at intake, 22. Graduate student. Referred for acute anxiety and episodic dissociation. Date of intake, September 7th, 1961. Your hands stop. September 1961. You were 22. A graduate student. Referred to a university health clinic for acute anxiety and episodic dissociation. The referral is a soft memory, a photograph of a photograph, degraded through copying. You turn the page. Transferred to a research affiliate under an Allen Memorial sub-designation. Modified depatterning protocol. Modified meaning, calibrated for a subject who needed to remain functionally intact post-discharge. 3-page Russell treatments over 12 days, administered while the subject believed she was receiving standard anxiety therapy. LSD twice. Introduced into a beverage at what was described as group cognitive therapy. You look up. The room unchanged. Folder 9 in your hands. The subject number on its tab has no name in this document. It has a name in the world. Your name. You turn the page. Initial resistance to psychic driving. Resistance addressed by modifying the phrase based on supplementary interview data. New phrase selected for maximum penetration given the subject's identified vulnerability profile. Below this is a line containing the phrase, "You do not read it." Your eyes stop before the words form. You cannot tell, will never be able to tell, whether that stopping is a decision you are making now or one installed in September 1961, running quietly ever since. Discharge summary. 31 days. Effect flat but compliant. No expressed memory of specific treatment procedures. Final line. Subject presence as an ideal candidate for future institutional utilization, given demonstrated cognitive profile, existing security clearances, and confirmed absence of procedural memory. You are sitting in a sub-basement in 1973, shredding the files of a discontinued program? You are the future institutional utilization. They selected you for this assignment, not because of your gift for order. Because your gift for order was manufactured in a facility in 1961, and the people who manufactured it needed someone to destroy the receipt. Thursday, 3:28 p.m. 47 minutes. The clock above the shredder has a second hand. Option 1, complete the assignment. Shredder, completion report. Carry folder 9 the way you have carried the soft-edged years since 1961. Option 2, retain folder 9. A journalist, a congressional staffer, a lawyer. You think about option 2 for exactly as long as it takes to understand what it requires. Stand in front of a subcommittee. Read the phrase your eyes refused to form. Build a coherent narrative of an experience designed to be incoherent, using a memory compromised by the people you are accusing. In a country that does not yet fully believe its government is capable of this. You pick up folder 9 and feed it to the shredder. The intake record, gone. The treatment log, gone. The discharge summary, gone. The page with the phrase, gone without being read, dying as language without becoming meaning, living now only in the place planted in 1961 with nowhere to go. Boxes 43 through 47, done. Completion report, clean language, no irregularities, materials processed in full compliance. You sign your name. Thursday, 7:15 p.m. You sit in the car outside your building until the street cycles through one full rotation of its evening. Here is what you know. 47 boxes are strips in a shredder. By Monday, they will be ash. MK Ultra exists as a complete record only in the memories of the people who ran it and the bodies of the people it was run on. Your body is one of those bodies. You do not know, sitting in that car, that one misfiled box will survive. That in 1977, a researcher will find it. That church committee hearings will follow. That men will sit at long tables in the language of regret without accountability. That Sidney Gottlieb will retire to his Virginia farm and live until 1999 and describe himself as a patriot who made difficult choices. You do not know any of that yet. You only know the 47 boxes. And folder 9? It is 30 years later. The phrase on the page lives in you as weather now. The particular atmospheric pressure that has accompanied your life since 1961, without ever announcing its name. You have not dreamed since September 1961. Spent 12 years believing that was simply how you were made. You know now it is not how you were made. It is what was done to you. You go upstairs, make dinner, do the dishes, dry each one completely before putting it away. Have always done this. Cannot remember a time before this. Used to wonder whether the compulsion toward completeness is a personality trait or something installed in September 1961 while a recording played under your pillow. You no longer wonder. The shredder finished its work in 1973. The paper is gone. You are still here. That was always the design, and now you know it too.